There's an interesting case in Massachusetts of a woman who has been arrested and accused of killing her 3 children. And when Debbie and I were discussing the case, the whole issue of postpartum syndrome came up.
Depression.
Postpartum, well, I guess there's postpartum anxiety.
It's postpartum depression or postpartum psychosis.
Right. And those aren't all exactly the same, but you know something about this. So let's talk about what do you think happened here? Let's give a couple of details. The woman's name is Lindsay Clancy. She's just 32. She's from Duxbury, Massachusetts. So the question becomes, what on earth would make a mom who obviously wanted these children, and 3 of them, to do the bizarre act, which would seem to run totally against nature, of killing her own children? Why would somebody do that? Well, as it turns out, there is a potential or a possible medical explanation.
Right. So postpartum depression is actually quite common. It's not super uncommon. I had it with my firstborn, with Justin, who is going to be 28 soon, so a long time ago. But, it's one of these things that you have a baby and you think you're just going to be like beaming with happiness because you just had a child. But what happens is your hormones become like just completely just
haywire.
Jumbled, haywire, right? And then you become, well, at least in my situation, I became very, very sad, crying just about everything and anything. I also became very possessive of Justin, and I didn't want people to hold him. I was extremely agitated by just even light. I had to have all the shades drawn. And so I was diagnosed actually with postpartum depression, and they did put me on medication because they didn't want it to spiral out of control. Now, I
think you said you even had thoughts of harming yourself.
Myself,
those do come to you, and
harming myself. I never had any thoughts of harming Justin, but I did have thoughts of harming myself. So that's why it was not a good combination. But a while ago, back in, I don't remember what year exactly, 2008, maybe 2008. A woman named Andrea Yates was in the news because she was accused of killing her children. She drowned them in a bathtub.
That's right.
And she had, again, what she was diagnosed with was psychosis, postpartum psychosis. She went crazy. She thought Satan was speaking to her, telling her to do things, or, that. Anyway.
Well, in this article, they talk about some of the symptoms.
Yes.
Hallucinations, delusions that alter a person's sense of reality.
After giving birth. So it's very specific. It happens after giving birth. Sometimes it does cause them to harm themselves and their children. So in Andrea Yates' case, that was the case. And in fact, I don't remember exactly what penalty she got, but it was overturned, and she was put in a mental institution.
So in other words, what you're saying is she first got convicted of murder.
And then
later they realized.
Well,
apparently one of the impacts of the postpartum, the psychosis, and the psychosis is not exactly the same as the anxiety. It's sort of anxiety, depression, psychosis. So it's differences of degree. But in the psychosis condition, evidently there's such a feeling of panic that is created in the mom's mind that you feel that you have to rescue your child by killing them. This seems almost incomprehensible.
It does.
But evidently these are the feelings that overtake your mind and cause this kind of terrible tragedy to occur.
Right.
I would hate to be on a jury in a case like this, because on the one hand you feel some terrible wrong has been committed, and yet the point is, this is truly a case where it might be that you don't have full control of your actions.
Yeah, the interesting statistics of this, it says 1 in 8 mothers, according to the Centers for Disease Control, 1 in 8 suffer postpartum depression. But it says here that women suffering from postpartum psychosis, it says about 5% of those women will attempt suicide and 4% will commit infanticide.
That's a rather startlingly high. I don't know how many women have this condition of the psychosis.
There really is no malicious intent, which is really so incredibly like interesting, right? This psychosis.
Well, I mean,
like,
you can
what?
just imagine the horror of the mom when she realizes what she's done. I mean, that to
Yes.
me almost is punishment enough, because you
How do you-
realize that you have done something irreparable.
How do you
can't
live with
bring your
yourself?
own kids back to life. You were the instrument.
Not to mention,
how terrible.
Not to mention the family. They're suffering so much because how do they? They can't hate her for doing something that she really had no control over. Yet she took 3 members of their family, and so this dichotomy is just like so difficult to understand. And our prayers go out with to the Clancy family and Mr. Clancy, who is, I'm sure, suffering greatly. She's still in the hospital because she jumped out of a window, by the way.
Oh.
And so she's recovering from those injuries, but it's going to be a long road of recovery for everybody involved.